Okay, so on here, what I just told you is for the quiz tomorrow, you need to know number 5 here. All that labeling, which we did go over our answers on the last video. Not sure if I posted that yet. And the other one we did so far was you should also be able to list and describe the 5 functions of the muscular system. So just those 2 things for your quiz tomorrow so far. We're also going to add to your quiz tomorrow questions that have to do with number 6 here. All right, so you want to mark that. We haven't done these answers yet. So first of all, a motor neuron is a neuron that sends out signals. So a motor neuron in all the skeletal muscles it stimulates is called a motor unit. Okay. The axon of each motor neuron has numerous endings called my key says axonal terminals, but let's just stay with this term because I think this is what we've been using more. Synaptic terminals. So that's the end of the axon. The actual gap between an axonal ending and the muscle cell is called the synaptic cleft. All right, and number 4. Within the axonal endings are many small vesicles containing a neurotransmitter substance called acetylcholine, or, yeah, I'll write it both. Which we typically abbreviate that as ACH. All right. Neurotransmitter just means it's a chemical that is used to send signals. All right. And number 5, when the blank reaches the ends of the axon, it could be nerve impulse, it could be, I would rather you know it as action potential. All right. And number 6, so when the action potential reaches the ends of the axon, the neurotransmitter is released and it diffuses to the muscle cell membrane to combine with receptors there. Binding of the neurotransmitters with muscle membrane receptors causes the membrane to become permeable to sodium, resulting in the influx of sodium ions. And basically, what happens is we lose the buildup of charge on each side of the membrane. This is called depolarization of the membrane. Then contraction of the muscle cell occurs. So all this stuff that we're doing here is to try to explain muscle contraction, how muscles actually shorten. Don't Che? Can I erase that? For your quiz tomorrow, I'd also like you to be able to label this thing. If you want to mark that, number 7. So what we have to label on here, we have to label these guys, which are the synaptic vesicles. I might not include this one, but these things here would be mitochondria. All right. And then this is supposed to be pointing into this gap here, and the gap is called the synaptic cleft. Eight. This band down here is going to be the sarcomere. This whole band from Z line to Z line. And this thing here is going to be the T tubule. Did I get them all? And that's the labeling for that. Cool. And so you marked that. That is on the quiz. All right. So this one here is a biggie. And you can go ahead and mark this one as well. This is gonna, so I'm going to put these same exact descriptions, but I'm going to put them in different order. Okay? But on here, the order should be, one is already done for you. All right, so it says one is one. Acetylcholine is released into the neuromuscular junction by the axonal terminal. Then the next step is actually going to be number 4. So we'll put a 2 by that. So acetylcholine diffuses across the neuromuscular junction and binds to receptors on the sarcolemma. Okay. The third step is actually going to be number 6. Depolarization occurs, the action potential is generated. This is sending the signal through the muscle. Step 4 is going to be up at number 2. The action potential carried deep into the cell causes the sarcoplasmic reticulum to release calcium ions. And step 5 is going to be number 5. The calcium ion concentration at the myofilaments increases. The myofilaments slide past one another and the cell shortens. Okay. And step 6, calcium is actively reabsorbed into the sarcoplasmic reticulum. So its concentration at the myofilaments decreases. We actually went more in depth on this part, talking about the calcium binding to the troponin on the actin and all that stuff, if you remember that. Active sites being exposed, all that fun stuff. And so the last step would be number 3. That's where the muscle cell will then be able to relax and go back to normal length. Okay? And number 9, which I am not going to put this on the quiz, so you don't have to mark it. But the answer should go. Number 1 is F. So there's a greater concentration of sodium outside the cell. Number 2 is going to be E. So greater concentration of potassium, K+, inside the cell. 3 is C. When the stimulus is delivered, the permeability of the membrane has changed and sodium diffuses into the cell. Number 4 is going to be B. The potassium diffuses out of the cell. Repolarization restores the H. Electrical conditions. And number 6 is going to be G. relative ionic concentrations on the two sides of the membrane during rest is reestablished by number 7 is I, activation of the sodium-potassium pump. All right, so there's 6 through 9. Now, so I mentioned earlier we are going to do today our success criteria is that we can identify the axial muscles, so muscles of the head, neck, torso. And that's coming up on the next few pages. I said we would skip 17. So today I'd like you to quietly work on numbers 18 through 20. 18 through 20. Tomorrow we will quiz, and maybe I'll give you a little more time after the quiz to finish 18 through 20. Let me recommend this, guys, when you're doing this. I would use a book to help you. And the other thing is, when it talks about the functions on here, and you're trying to figure out what does what, I would start by actually looking at the muscle, finding it in the book. There's tables in Chapter 7. And in Chapter 7, you can look up the muscle, and it'll say what it actually does. So look up the muscle, look at what it does, and then try to match that to column A. Do that for all these. You only have to label, well, on this first one, you're labeling all those, but you only have to label them if they have a circle next to them, because that's supposed to be where you fill it in, and then color that thing that way. You can color them or label them, but you only have to label the ones that have circles next to them. All right? So we are doing 18 through 20 today, and I'll probably give you a little bit of time after the quiz tomorrow. And that's it.